Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a very special edition of the Ramen Robbie live stream. Tonight, we will be celebrating 20 years to the day that yours truly became a fan of the Cleveland Browns. That's right, it all started on September 12th, 2004. And here we are on September 12th, 2024. It's crazy. What a ride it has been. A lot of ups and downs, mostly downs, unfortunately. But I got to tell you, I wouldn't change it for a thing. We have a jam-packed show for you tonight. A lot on the format. Before I get started, here we got little image of 9-year-old Ramen Robbie here wearing a Jeff Garcia jersey. And I should probably get in full screen. Am I in full screen right now? Anyway. We got a picture of 9-year-old Ramen Robbie here wearing the Jeff Garcia jersey, and we got a picture of, I believe this is 26-year-old Ramen Robbie, coincidentally also wearing a Jeff Garcia jersey. But that was not on purpose or anything. That's just, it's kind of a funny coincidence. Anyway, is this full screen? What is going on with this? I guess it is. All right. That's the best we can do. I don't know how that's showing up in your screen, but anyway, getting back on track here. So for tonight's presentation, it's going to be tonight's main act is a slideshow presentation, and it's going to be starting off with the story of how I became a Browns fan, because that's pretty important, right? And then it's going to transition to paying homage to the 2004 season because it's 20 years. So we're looking back 20 years. We're going to go through that entire season. Of course, I'm going to interject with personal anecdotes, personal stories. And then we're going to go from there. After that, we'll probably just get into more random things like, favorite moment the last 20 years, most heartbreaking moment, this, that. And then, unfortunately, we're up against some time constraints tonight, so I'm not going to be able to stay up all night because I do have to work in the morning, unfortunately. So we can't do everything I would have liked to have done, but what is Zach Ardo saying? Well, you live near Cleveland. Okay, that section is done. Next. Okay. Great. This is going great already. Anyway, so our story starts on September 12th, 2004. Now we're going to go back to 2004, but first let's set the stage. What was the world like back then? What was going on in the world in 2004? So we're going to do one of these deals here. Oh, by the way, Zach Ardo is going to roast me for this first comment here. But anyway, we're gonna do one of these things. Like what was the number one song? What was the number one movie? And all this kind of fun stuff. So the number one song on September 12th, 2004 was Goodies featuring P.D. Pablo by Ciara. I actually don't know who this is. I know Ardo's going to roast me for that, right? This is the hip-hop connoisseur. This guy is a historian of hip-hop, but okay, I'm just going to ignore him now. I'll be honest, I did not know this song by name, but when I looked it up, I quickly recognized the beat. I assume the same would be for you if you also didn't recognize it by name. It's a pretty iconic beat. Number one movie on September 12th was Resident Evil Apocalypse. I got to be honest, I have not seen any of the Resident Evil movies, let alone this one. It doesn't look like something I'd want to see, but anyway, that was the number one movie on September 12th. Also, on September 12th, 2004, we were right in the middle, right in the thick of a presidential election, just like in 2024. This one was George W. Bush versus John Kerry. And I got to tell you, see these yard signs here? This is a core childhood memory unlocked. And this is not an endorsement by any means. But the Bush-Cheney sign was iconic back then. I mean, you saw that damn thing everywhere. Here we go. We're already skipping ahead. But anyway, and then another thing going on in 2004 was the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction. I mean, that's arguably the most infamous pop culture moment of all time, especially the last 20 years. I mean, yeah, there was the Kanye Taylor Swift thing, there was the Will Smith thing a couple of years ago, but I mean, this has to still be number one. I believe that was at halftime of the Panthers Patriots Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, that's a quick little look back at 2004, what was going on. Not a super deep dive for the sake of time, but we're going to move along here. So anyway, let's get into the story of how I became a Browns fan. And that all started on September 12th, 2004. It was a balmy afternoon in Ashtabula, Ohio. If you're a fan of my stream, it means you're most likely from Northeast Ohio, right? Or you have some connection to Northeast Ohio. So you probably are aware of Ashtabula on some level. Well, my family was gathered at my grandmother's house for Sunday dinner, something that was a regular occurrence in those days. And the Browns game was on in the living room. I remember my dad and my brother were watching the Browns game in the living room. And what's interesting about this is, up until this point, the Browns had never caught my attention. This is the first time for some reason, I took interest in watching the Cleveland Browns. And a lot of you might not know this, but the Cleveland Indians were my first love. Huge Indians fan when I was a young child. We used to go to a ton of games in the late 90s when they were making their run into the 2000s. You know, even when they kind of started their rebuild. And was a huge Indians fan. Had a ton of baseball cards, had all the T-shirt jerseys. Jim Thome was my favorite player. Used to draw like baseball fields in my driveway with chalk. Here's proof. This is a snapshot from a home video of me wearing a Robbie Alomar shirt. Now, I know this looks like a picture of a wanted fugitive or something, but bear with me. This is the best I could do. But there it is, Robbie Alomar. I had a bunch of these shirts, actually. So that's proof. I know you all were dying for proof. Well, there it is. Anyway, back to the story, how it all started. The Browns caught my attention for the first time that day at my grandmother's house. I don't know why. I can't explain why. It's almost like it was sent down from the stars or something. And I took a keen interest in the Browns being up 3-0. By the way, the Browns were hosting the Baltimore Ravens on this day. And they were leading 3-0. And a lot of people will jump all over that and say, "Oh, you're a homer. You're not a homer. You're a front runner because you only cared because they were winning." I guess so. Sue me. I was 9 years old. They were winning 3-0, and I just thought, "Wow, this is really cool." So I took a keen interest. And what's funny is, like, you know, time goes slower when you're a kid. So it seemed like it was 3-0 forever. I kept going back and forth to the TV, back and forth. I don't know what I was doing. I might have been playing with my wrestling toys. I was a big wrestling fan back in the day. It was just 3-0 forever, it seemed like. But then eventually the Browns went up 20-3, and it seemed like the biggest blowout I had ever seen. You know, because at that point I was 9 years old, probably still wasn't the greatest at math. So it just seemed like a lot to a little. Anyway, it was very exciting. And I remember making the comment to my dad, "Does this mean they will make the playoffs?" You know, I didn't have logic at the time, I guess. You know, I didn't know if one game could get them in the playoffs. It's too bad it didn't work that way, right? But anyway, I was hooked from that point on. So that's the story. That's where it all started, if you're curious. It's probably, unfortunately, not that unique of a story. People probably have similar stories, right? But that's the specifics. So moving along here, let's talk about that game in particular. So we're getting to the 2004 season now. We're starting to review the 2004 season. Week 1, 2004, Baltimore Ravens at Cleveland Browns. Browns come away with a 20-3 victory. As you can see here, it was 3-0 for a while. I mean, it was 3-0 at the half. So, and you know, rather than listen to me do a breakdown of this game, let's listen to Chris Berman. Let's hand it off to Chris Berman. So here we go.
Sanders last played in 2000 for Washington. Now he's wearing his age, number 37, as Baltimore was playing at Cleveland.
I will be back.
Never had a ball really thrown his way, and here he is, though, as he said this morning, Tom, on a punt. No tackles, 5-yard return for punt, quiet day. Jamal Lewis had 500 yards in 2 games against Cleveland last year. How do you think he did today? Not as well, Tom. 20 carries for 57 yards. Obviously, the Browns did not want to get embarrassed. 3-3, third quarter. 3rd and 10. Jeff Garcia, new quarterback. Rookie tight end Kellen Winslow caught 4 for 39. 2 plays later, Garcia to Quincy Morgan, and he's wide open. 10-3 Cleveland.
Well, great job of throwing the ball over the top by Garcia. I think that sometimes he has a bit of trouble seeing the short and intermediate routes, but he can certainly see the deep routes.
How about this coverage by Anthony Henry as Kyle Bowler is picked off. Bowler was picked off twice on the day. Meanwhile, Garcia was 15-24, 180, but made the big throws here from the shadow of his own goalpost. Wide open is Andre Davis. They got 2 Andre Davises on their team. This is the receiver. So where's that Ravens secondary? Dawson's field goal, 13-3. Kennard Lang beating Jonathan Ogden's replacement. He was hurt, didn't play the game. Ethan Brooks, and he forces the fumble. Lang had 2 sacks. He forced the fumble, and now, as a result, play act, and Garcia can do this, Tom. He smells the corner.
Garcia outside the pocket, using his legs, getting into the end zone, and this is what the Browns expect from him. Big plays, both with his arms.
All right, so there you go. Browns knock off the Ravens 20 to where are we at? Knock off the Ravens 20-3. Actually, let's pull up. Let's pull up the box score here. Jeff Garcia, 15-24, 180 yards, touchdown. That beautiful shot of him jumping into the stands at the end. Kellen Winslow, rookie draft pick that year. Remember, he got hurt in the next week, so this is really the only full game he played his rookie year. 4 catches, 39 yards. And you heard Chris Berman talk about how they held Jamal Lewis to 57 yards after he torched them for over 200 in 2 games last year, 200 apiece. So, anyway, 04 season off to a wonderful start. And, it's funny, like, this is the first game I ever really watched as a Browns fan. It's too bad this wasn't a sign of things to come, because it was anything but, as we all know. But anyway, oh, by the way, you see the word white whale down there? I got to explain what that means. So if you're a follower of my highlight channel, you probably have picked up on the fact that I have a pretty big Browns archive, an archive of footage. I have a lot of Browns games. I have a huge binder just filled with DVD-R discs of old Browns games I've collected over the years, and something I'm very proud of. But this game I have never been able to find. I've never been able to find it. I've searched every corner of the internet to no avail. I've never been able to find it. If anybody out there knows, has any connections, hook me up. Because this is one I'd kill to watch. I'd kill to see it. I'd kill to listen to the broadcast, the original broadcast. But I've never been able to find it. It's too bad. Anyway, moving along here. Let's talk about the 2004 Cleveland Browns a little bit. Who was this team, since we're going to be getting into all that. 4th year under head coach Butch Davis. Jeff Garcia, previously the quarterback with the 49ers, was brought in via free agency, big-time acquisition. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. Kellen Winslow Jr., out of the University of Miami U, whatever they call it, was the 6th pick by the Browns in the 2004 draft. If you remember, the Browns traded up 1 spot to take him. What the team looked like, it was basically the same nucleus of Butch Davis era players. When you think of Butch Davis, you think of like William Green, Gerard Warren, Robert Griffith, Ryan Tucker, people like that. It was essentially still that team. As far as expectations, I don't actually know. I'm assuming it was mild expectations, probably anywhere from 6-10 to 8-8. I don't know. But anyway, that gives you a quick idea of what the 2004 Browns were like. So we talked about week 1, what a tremendous game that was. But then week 2 happens, and in typical Browns fashion, disaster strikes. Disaster absolutely strikes. Browns go down to Dallas. Ironically, they just had a disaster against Dallas, right? And they lose 19-12. Browns lose 6 starters to injury. 6 starters. Jeff Garcia, who was so wonderful in week 1, completely flops and has a quarterback rating of 0. As you see here, look at that stat line. Yikes. Ouch. And Kellen Winslow Jr., the 6th overall pick in the draft, suffers a season-ending injury. Season-ending injury. Just anything that could have gone wrong in this game went wrong. Unbelievable. And I talked about the Kellen Winslow injury. We're going to watch that really quick here.
Kick it from the 20. The ball has to cross the 30.
30-yard line, that's right. Boy, what a...
So they stack it heavy to the right side.
By the way, what you're watching is this is a safety kick. The Cowboys just got a safety on the Browns. So usually the kicker punts the ball off or whatever. And this is a rare instance where you'll see an onside safety kick. So this is what's going on here.
Dawson tells his teammates to back up. Here's the kick up in the air, and it's loose, and it's recovered by the Browns. So they give up 2 points, but they net 37 yards.
Boy, what a job. Usually it's done off the tee. This time it's done on the ground. It takes a big hit. I couldn't see who missed it.
Anthony Henry on the recovery. The Brown player injured on that onside kick. They've also brought in Luke McCown, their 3rd quarterback, rookie out of Louisiana Tech, who they drafted in the 4th round, and that is Winslow. Oh, my goodness. Kellen Winslow helped off the field.
They brought in Luke McCown, Jim, for one reason. He has a stronger arm than Jeff Garcia. He can move around, buy some time, and he can probably make it to the end zone if he can keep the Cowboy rush off of him long enough to...
All right, you get the idea. That was Kellen Winslow getting injured. Terribly disappointing. I mean, damn it. Terribly disappointing. I mean, your 6th overall pick in the draft getting hurt in the 2nd game. And then in such questionable circumstances, you know, it begs the question, why was he playing special teams? Why is he trying to recover an onside kick? I don't know. But disaster strikes there. But anyway, moving along in the 2004 season, so the Browns would end up going 2-2. So they're 1-1 after 2 weeks, obviously, if you can do basic math. But over the next 4 games, they would go 2-2, and they find themselves sitting at 3-3 after 6 games. Not bad, definitely not bad at all, considering all the injuries in week 2, and they probably didn't have huge expectations going into the season. And, you know, to go over some noteworthy things from these games, I not a whole lot to report. I guess this Pittsburgh game, that was Big Ben's first game against Cleveland. And then in the Cincinnati game here, Jeff Garcia tossed 4 touchdowns, and William Green and Lee Suggs, Browns running backs, both had 100 yards apiece. However, Lee Suggs had 100 receiving yards. William Green had 100 rushing yards, I believe. Maybe it's the other way around. I don't think it is. But that's kind of noteworthy. And then from that Bengals game, that was the famous Jeff Garcia to Andre Davis 99-yard touchdown. So we're going to watch that here.
These mushroom...
And this is not cooperating with me. I'm not sure what's going on here. There we go.
31-yard line. Play action. Garcia on the move. They go up top. He's got a man. How about that? Andre Davis. And Davis will score. 99 yards. Wow.
What a great play call by Terry Rabitsky and the Cleveland Browns staff to show confidence in Jeff Garcia after an interception out of his own end zone, throwing the ball on the move.
By the way, look at that stat line. Andre Davis, 1 reception, 99 yards, touchdown.
99-yard touchdown.
A quick strike from the Cleveland Browns. 99 yards. 7-0 Browns.
Legendary play. Absolutely legendary. My moderator in the chat's saying, oh, yeah, who could forget that one? This just shows you how lukewarm of a Browns fan this clown is. Anyway, damn it, I keep skipping ahead there. We're only in 04. Wait till 21 when they trade their franchise. Well, I'm not going year by year. I'm just doing 2004. Don't worry. Anyway, moving along here. So the Browns were 3-3. Big win over the Bengals. Marked their first 3-0 home start since 1973, by the way. That's kind of interesting. That's basically 30 years. And at this point, the Browns were building a reputation for being very tough at home at this point in the 04 season. They were kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team. I mean, they were 3-0 at home and then 0-3 on the road. And if you watch games from that era, you'll hear the announcers talk about that, how the Browns are just a completely different monster at home, right? So anyway, that takes us to week 7. The Eagles come to town. The red-hot Philadelphia Eagles, led by Donovan McNabb and the newly acquired Terrell Owens. Remember, the Eagles were taking the league by storm when T.O. got there. I mean, he was just lighting up the league, and nobody could really stop him at this point. So they roll into Cleveland, and despite the Browns, beating up on the Bengals, I mean, they had to have been huge underdogs, I imagine. But Cleveland gives a valiant effort led by Jeff Garcia, and they end up falling short in overtime, 34-31. But, I mean, nobody was discouraged after this game. Jeff Garcia continued to battle. He looked better every week, at this point at least. And a lot of optimism, despite the loss. So, again, this is a pretty classic game. So we're going to hand it off to Chris Berman to do some highlights. Robert says, I was on my honeymoon in 2004. My new bride and I went to Hooters because they had all the games. We watched rookie Big Ben kick our ass. Yeah, I actually remember that game. That was my first Browns-Steelers game. Started off kind of good, but anyway, I'm not going to break down that game right now. So anyway, let's watch the NFL primetime breakdown of this game. So here we go.
So these guys have had a lot of fun. Donovan McNabb, Terrell Owens, looking to go 6-0. It'll be the second time a team.
By the way, at points while these videos play, I'm not going to sit here the whole time. I might get up and go do something else, just a heads up.
Mystery that would happen. Jeff Garcia and the Browns had their own plans. But early on, a 7-7 game, the scoring was on right from the get.
By the way, how does the audio sound? Tell me if the audio sounds like not very good coming through the computer here.
Go. Here's the...
Because I'm not using OBS. It's just being picked up through like the screen recording or screen capture audio, whatever it's called.
Third touchdown in about 7.5 minutes of play. McNabb to Owens, 39 yards, and, well, what's that smell?
Look at that TOSBO. Hilarious.
He says, it ain't me. And it's amazing that he reads the signs while reading the defenses. And then after a Cleveland field goal, 14-10, McNabb to Owens, 40-yard touchdown, and then there's another sign at the other end, and then so it's gone. And now
You can tear it down if you score a touchdown.
well, yeah, but Tom White, unsportsmanlike conduct, and Andy Reid says, "Teal, no, look, that is an error." Right? You just can't do that. And I don't, I get it, but it's a unsportsmanlike conduct assessed on the kick. Then McNabb picked off by Andre Davis, one of 18 Andre Davises on the Cleveland Browns, and Cleveland takes over. On the 13, a few plays later, Lee Suggs it right up the middle, 13 yards, and it's a 21-17 game. Game on. This game was on. Third quarter, same score, Garcia to Steve Hyde, who skates in for a touchdown. 24-21, Cleveland, 21-yard play. It can't quite get up in there. Third quarter now, same score, Cleveland up 3. McNabb this time pumps and looks for Todd Pinkston. And a flag, Tommy, here. Look, they just got tangled up.
Yeah, you saw the overthrow there, but, T.O. thinks he's open all the time. He certainly could have been open at the end of this play. A little bit deceiving because the ball was in the air, but like every great receiver, he feels like he's open all the time.
How about this? The shuffle pass to L.J. Smith works in the NFC, Tom. Touchdown. McNabb and the Eagles finding different ways to throw touchdown passes, 28-24. Then, after a fumble recovery, it's Brian Westbrook stopped for a loss by Kennard Lang. Cleveland making a big stand here. Lang again stuffs him. Westbrook leaves. It looked like a shoulder injury, bruised sternum. X-rays as they fly home, not available to us yet. But he's gone with the chest contusion, bruised sternum. McNabb sacked by Ebenezer Ekuban. And so they settle for a field goal. Cleveland defense, big stand here, keeps it 31-24. Then Garcia to Aaron Shea, 12 yards. 3rd and 15. Garcia to Shea for 9, so 4th and 6 from the 33. Garcia incomplete, but roughing the passer on Brian Dawkins.
And we saw a few questionable calls in this game. I mean, the quarterback has to be allowed to play the game as well. Didn't look like anything very physical right there. Guys trying to hold.
Well, I got to say, that is shocking that was called in 2004. Nowadays it's not really surprising at all, but that's pretty odd. Even though I'm happy it went the Browns' way, it's pretty suspicious, I'm not going to lie.
Hold up, you make a critical call in a game that could affect the outcome.
There are a couple each way, we thought. 3 plays later. Look at Garcia. You don't think he wants this game after all the
But what a battler, what a warrior Jeff Garcia is.
Talk and back and forth, down to the 1. And speaking of Brian Dawkins, we know he's as good as it gets with the hits. Now watch Garcia. Boom into Dawkins, but goes in for the touchdown to tie the game at 31 all.
Take another look at it from the end zone. You're going to see the impact on Dawkins right there. When those helmets hit, Garcia wanted that touchdown awfully bad.
Philly is the ball at the 49 with 3 seconds to go. The Hail Mary from McNabb. What do you do, Tom?
Got to knock it down.
But Pinkston almost catches it. Incomplete. We go to overtime.
Just like the Bears game last year, they almost caught the Hail Mary.
High to 31. Each team with the possession in OT now. Second Philly possession. McNabb. He'll take off. First down and much more. 28-yard pickup. So now, 3 plays later at the 50. McNabb with Westbrook out.
It's funny. There was a game against the Bengals where Carson Palmer had a long run in overtime, which ended up leading to a field goal. And that's how the Browns lost. Funny parallel here.
No, Mahe swimming up 12 yards to the 38. And then Dorsey Levens, the veteran, signed for moments like this. 6 yards, hit a field goal range. It's going to be a 50-yarder for David Akers from Louisville. How can you miss it? The ball is up. Kick is good. Green Acres, the place to be. The Eagles. 6 it. Look at Butch. It's short. No, it made it. This is a very.
But anyway, I mean, just an absolutely thrilling game, even though they lost. At this point, nobody was upset. I mean, you had to have just been very pleased with how the Browns played on this day. What a game. What a game. Anyway, moving along here. This takes me to my next thing. And by the way, yours truly was in attendance that day. I saved that little anecdote for this next slide here. I was in attendance. That was my first Browns game. And this segues to something very major that I have to share with everybody. So if you're a regular viewer of my live stream, you're probably aware that I have an this uncanny ability to recall the score of every Browns game since 2004. And it's kind of my claim to fame. Everybody that like I show this to is always blown away. People are constantly quizzing me on scores. Like, you know, you say, hey, Browns Chiefs 2006, I'll be like, oh, 31-28. Or Browns Eagles 2008, I'll say 30-10. Or, you know, Browns Bengals 2013, second game, 41-20. That's just, I don't know, photographic memory, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of my superpower I have. It's my claim to fame. Anyway, this is the first Browns game I saw in person, like I said, and the score thing, the memorizing score thing started with this. Browns Week 4 of 2009. Funny you say that. I just referenced that game with the Carson Palmer run. Talk about simulation. We'd always talk, not simulation, but eerie coincidences. 23-20. Anyway. Sorry, simulation is... Never mind. But anyway, how the whole scoring thing started was we got a program at the game. This kid's sidetracking me here. We got a program at the game, which we don't usually do. So again, it comes back to this destiny thing, right? Because we've been to plenty of sporting events as a family. We never would get programs, but for some reason on this day we did. And the program had all the Browns scores with the results up until this point. And for some reason, I decided to memorize the scores. I don't know why. I guess because I was very interested in the Cleveland Browns, right? And the rest is history. That's literally the story of how I know all the scores of Browns games. At first, I kind of did it for fun, like because I was just kind of a Browns nerd. Like I remember, like when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, I would just write the schedule in my notebook and all the results from the games. And because I would look at it so much, I guess I just started to learn the scores. And at first I didn't try to, but then after a few years, I think people started to take note of how like unique that was. And then I think at that point I started to intentionally kind of make an effort to start memorizing the scores. And now I do all the time. I'm constantly, as mental exercises, I constantly will quiz myself just to make sure I still have it. 2011, week 12. So that would have been after 11 games. They were 4-7. Oh, that was a heartbreaker to the Bengals. Oh, that was you know, every year there's a game that makes you sick to your stomach. That was a game that made me sick to my stomach down in Cincinnati. We had that game in the bag, but I think AJ Green had some long catch at the very end. What's going on, Jesus Saves? How you doing? Welcome to the stream. Anyway, that was the score of the game. Am I right, Ardo? Tell me if I'm right. I know I'm right, but I just want to hear you say it. Long pause now, because I think the stream's on delay. And he's not answering. All right, we're going to move on here. So moving on, that's the kind of the story of the score thing. But after that, so we're back in the 2004 season now. After that, the wheels completely fall off. So the Browns at that point were sitting at 3-4, and everything was looking great, right? But after that, the wheels completely fall off. And get this, they go on a 9-game losing streak. Okay, my lead moderator is not even listening to the stream. Imagine my shock. I asked if I was right about the score. 2011, week 12. It was 23-20, correct? Which, by the way, another simulation, because that's the same score as the game that Jared said, and it's also the Bengals again. Crazy. But anyway, I keep getting sidetracked here. Anyway, the wheels completely fall off. The Browns go on a 9-game losing streak. And Jeff Garcia, the star free agent signing, essentially out for the season by week 10. or excuse me, week 11 against the Jets. Everyone and their mom gets hurt. It was one of those seasons. And Butch Davis, the head coach, Butch Davis, resigns after week 12. It's just a disaster of a season. So everything just completely goes to hell in a handbasket, or whatever the phrase is. But there are some things I want to talk about, some highlights I want to bring up from this stretch of games here. Week 9 at Ravens, Sunday Night Football. On national TV, the Browns travel to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Back when Sunday Night Football was on ESPN. Another core childhood memory there. Notable things from this game are the infamous Derek Frost shank punt, 7-yard shank from Cleveland's own end zone. Ed Reed had the infamous 106-yard pick six, and there was a questionable no call, pass interference that in the end zone. But anyway, we're gonna watch the clips from this. We're gonna listen to Stuart Scott break it down.
A federal drug conspiracy case. Opening kickoff, Richard Alston was saucy. He was also selling cars a week ago. He was not playing NFL football. Just signed this week. He was cut in mini camp, training camp, and my man was gone. 93-yard touchdown. First Browns opening kickoff touchdown return in 14 years. Second quarter, 10-9 Browns. Deion Sanders will leave the game with an injured toe. Ooh, my toe. My tootin'. A corn. Fourth quarter, Browns up 13-12. Derek Frost running deep from his own end zone to see what happened.
That punt right there, that shank changed the course of Cleveland Browns history, because if he doesn't do that, say he punts it, it's a normal punt out past the 50. Ravens at this point had all field goals. I mean, they weren't doing anything on offense. What if they punt? And because by the way, the shank led to a touchdown, as you'll see right here.
Set up Jamal Lewis, banging in.
If he doesn't shank that punt, the Browns very likely win this game. By the way, they sweep Baltimore. Would have been a sweep of the Ravens. They improved to 4-4. Who knows? Romeo Crennel might not have been the coach the next year. I mean, the domino effect, or not the domino effect, the butterfly effect is so real. It's crazy. All these little things. It's a game of inches, as they say.
2-yard touchdown, 2-point conversion good. Ravens up 20-13. Second and goal for Cleatown. Jeff Garcia's pass, hated on by Ed.
Or is it domino effect? I don't know. Butterfly effects when you go back in time with the time machine, I think. Never mind.
Reed, I got a lot of time to tell you some things. Let me say, first of all, where are you from? The U. Ed Reed, 16th career interception, 6th career touchdown, 4th pick of the year.
Man,
longest interception return for a touchdown in NFL history, 106 yards. Yo, Ed, tired.
But watch this. Let's slow this down. It should have been pass interference. Watch Aaron Shea. That's not a good angle, but I believe that should have been pass interference right there. So, Browns kind of got robbed there, and that was that. But yeah, that Ed Reed pick six went in the record books, as you see there. By the way, I missed that red background on SportsCenter. That was so iconic. But so that's that. Week 9 at Baltimore. Browns fall to 3-5. That takes us to Week 10 versus the Steelers. Now, this game is not really memorable for the game itself. It's mostly memorable for the extracurriculars. There was a lot of stuff going on before the game. First off, we had Browns defensive tackle Gerard Warren threatening Ben Roethlisberger. He basically said he was going to knock him out or something during the game. He's going to go for his head. And I believe this is a snapshot from the Plain Dealer. It says, "League warns Warren to not knock noggin." And, I mean, I'm sure that led to some hostility between the teams. Other notable thing from before this game, the infamous William Green, Joey Porter pregame fight. That happened here. And we're definitely going to watch that one, so let's get that going here on full screen.
Welcome back live to the NFL Today, everyone, where we have some breaking news for you coming out of Cleveland. Let's take you right out to Dan Deerdorf. Dan, what's going on?
Well, thank you, Greg. You know, we mentioned earlier about Gerard Warren's comments and how emotions were running high. Well, just a couple of moments ago, this is what happened down on the field when the two teams were out warming up. Right in the middle there, that is Joey Porter, number 55, William Green, number 31, the running back for the Browns, and they are exchanging blows. William Green told Armin Katayan that Joey Porter spit in his face right there, and that's what started the fight. Bill Cowher has no comment on what happened. You can see William Green is bleeding. These were big-time punches being thrown, and we are being told this video has already been forwarded to the NFL office in New York, and they are looking at the video to try to determine whether or not there will be some suspensions handed down prior to the start of today's game. So stay tuned. We've got more to report coming here from Cleveland.
All right, Dan, thank you very much. We will indeed keep an eye on the actions between the Steelers and the Browns.
All right, so classic moment there. That's actually what led to, because William Green and Joey Porter, as Greg Gumbel just said, or excuse me, Dan Deerdorf, they were both ejected from the game. So that's actually the game that led to James Harrison getting his first start for the Steelers. And, you know, just good old classic Rust Belt animosity. I miss those days. It's not there anymore between the Browns and the Steelers. And people get mad at me all the time when I say this. Hold on. A lot of people remember William for running to the line and falling down. That's true. But the rivalry is not what it used to be, because it's since long been replaced by Ravens Steelers, right? The Ravens are essentially the original Cleveland Browns organization, so that's why that rivalry is what it is. And it's just, you know, the Browns did a decent impression, I guess, when they first came back, but it hasn't been the same in a long time. So I miss those days, because back in these days, it kind of, like I said, it had a decent impression. They were giving a decent impression. Anyway, moving on here. So week 12, that takes us to week 12. Cleveland Browns go down to Cincinnati and find themselves in a historic sorry, somebody texted me, but it didn't, I don't think it wasn't helpful. Sorry. Week 12, I'll start over here. Sorry. Week 12, the Browns find themselves in a historic shootout against the Bengals. And it wound up being the second highest scoring game in NFL history, at least at the time. Final score wound up being 58-48. And I got to tell you, it came out of left field. I mean, when you woke up that Sunday, the 3-7 Browns taking on the 4-6 Bengals, nobody really expected them to put up 106 total points, if my math is correct on that. 104, whatever, I don't know. So, I mean, that was totally out of left field. Kelly Holcomb was starting for the Browns at this point because, like I mentioned earlier, Jeff Garcia was gone by week 11, I think. So, you know, I remember watching this game as a kid. I'm very fortunate that I was able to say I'm very fortunate to say that I was able to watch this game live, because I did. And I remember at one point in the second half just being like mesmerized by the amount of big plays. Like, it was just back and forth, back and forth. It was just crazy. And I want to say that's like a once-in-a-lifetime game, but funny enough, the Browns and Bengals found themselves in another high-scoring shootout just about 3 years later. So anyway, I said earlier it was the second highest scoring game in NFL history. I don't know if it still is, because remember there was the Chiefs-Rams game on Monday night back in 2018. I think that may have beaten this game. I'm not sure, but anyway, I'm not going to play any highlights from this game. I should, but I can't, because this game was uploaded by NFL Throwback, which means the footage is in the NFL's content ID system, which means I don't know if that's what it's called, but it means that it can be picked up automatically, And my live streams have been shut down for playing too much footage that gets marked by the NFL. So I've already played some footage that potentially has been marked, so I don't want to risk it by playing another one. So I'm not going to play any footage from this game. But anyway, this wound up being Butch Davis's last game as head coach of the Browns. And that takes us to our next slide. Butch calls it quits. The following Monday, Butch Davis resigned as head coach of the Browns. And to give a quick rundown here, overall record was 24 and 35. 24 and 35. One playoff appearance. But a lot of people don't realize this. Butch Davis was actually the reason the Browns lost that game. Bruce Arians, his offensive coordinator at the time, has come out and said that, gone on record. Because at halftime, the Browns were, I believe, were leading 24-7. And then for whatever reason, Butch Davis just gets power crazy and takes the play calling duties away from both of his coordinators. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Browns went into this ridiculous prevent defense, and Tommy Maddox just carved them up. And Browns ended up losing that game in ridiculous fashion. And by the way, that's the reason they lost. It had nothing to do with Renegade. Spare me that ridiculous sham of a tradition. The Steelers fans like to say, like, oh, yeah, we play Renegade at the end of the third quarter in every game because it helped us come back in the playoffs and beat the Browns. That had nothing to do with it. That song sucks, by the way. And I love classic rock. I'm a rock connoisseur, as a lot of people know in this chat. But that song sucks. And it had nothing to do with the Browns or the Steelers coming back to win that day. Watch that comment alone will do more to bring back the rivalry with the Steelers than anything the Browns will do this year. But anyway, back to Butch Davis. Awful track record as general manager. He, I think officially, once Dwight Clark was pushed out the window, I think Butch Davis officially took over as GM. But I think his entire time there, he had a lot of say in the Browns draft picks at the time. And he had an awful track record. I mean, taking Gerard Warren over LaDainian Tomlinson, taking Kellen Winslow over Ben Roethlisberger. His fetish with players from Miami. He drafted a ton of Miami players because he was the coach there. There was something else he did. Oh, and just cutting Chris Gardocki, cutting Kevin Johnson. I mean, he just an awful GM. That was really his downfall. And, this brings me to my next comment. Revisionist history. Browns fans love revisionist history. And they're doing it right now with Baker Mayfield. But what always ends up happening is when somebody's here, they get thrown to the wolves, put through the meat grinder. But then when they leave, like, it usually takes a couple years, fans look back and say, oh man, I missed that guy. He wasn't given a fair shake. And people do that with Butch Davis now. They remember him a lot better than he really was. And by the way, I'm not trying to run him down too hard here, because I think in my tier list video, I may have defended him a little bit, but that was 4 years ago. So my thinking has evolved a little bit. But people remember him a little bit too fondly because he was the coach when they made the playoffs one time. So anyway, Butch Davis quits, leaves the Browns in the dust. And that takes us to week 13. New England Patriots come to town and throttle the Browns 42-15. And I always say this is Bill Belichick's like first real taste of revenge on the Browns, because when he was in Cleveland, he was treated very poorly by the fans here. At one point, had to have police guard his house. They were always just like brutal. Brutal's an understatement with Belichick. And then when he came back in 2000 as coach of New England, the Browns fans like heckled the shit out of him. So at this point, like this had to be Bill Belichick's like first real taste of revenge against Cleveland. Now he did beat the Browns in 01 and 03. So this wasn't his first win over the Browns, but those games were in New England, and those were actually pretty good games. So that wasn't, I'm sure that was sweet to a degree, but it couldn't have been as sweet as what this was. Because to give more context, the Pats are when the Pats roll into Cleveland on this day and humiliate the Browns, they're on the verge of their third Super Bowl in 4 years. And the Browns are just in shambles. Their head coach just left. Luke McCown is starting at quarterback. They get blown out 42-15. I mean, this had to have been like so great for Belichick, who, by the way, holds grudges. Belichick is a big grudge guy. So I always looked at this as like Bill Belichick's first revenge game against Cleveland. Week 16. Browns at Dolphins on Sunday night. And I'm posing a question to the audience. I don't know if anybody even remembers this game, but is this the worst Sunday night football game in NFL history? It's a serious question, and I think it has a case. The 3-12 Dolphins hosting the 3-12 Browns. The quarterback matchup was Luke McCown versus A.J. Feely. It was 7. The final score was 10-7, and it was 7-7 for like the entire game. It was like awful. One of the worst games I've ever seen. And on top of that, the NFL community, the NFL family, had a heavy heart because NFL legend Reggie White had just died that day. And, I mean, it's been 20 years. A lot of younger people particularly probably don't even know who he is anymore. But that was a big loss at the time. I mean, not on the level of like Kobe Bryant, obviously, but I mean, that was a huge loss at the time. Reggie White dying at 43, I believe. Let me catch up on chat, by the way. I'm not trying to ignore chat, guys. I'm just I'm kind of in the zone with this presentation here. I never understood how Holcomb could look so amazing, then so ordinary from what... Yeah, that was a big thing with Holcomb, was how streaky he was. Yes, the absolute worst Sunday Night Football game. I remember the announcers stifling laughter. Did one or both teams have... I can't read that. Damn emoji's blocking it. Did one or both teams have hype the year before to earn... Yeah, it's another good question. I don't know why this game was even on Sunday night to begin with, because the Browns the year before were 5-11. This presentation is 10 times better than anything you did in college. But it's a good question, though. Like, the Dolphins, I don't know what the Dolphins may have made the playoffs in 2003, if my memory serves me correctly, but the Browns were 5-11. I don't know why this game was scheduled. Very weird. But anyway, other things I want to point out from this game. Phil Dawson had an infamous doink. I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that in a second here. And then Lee Suggs, Browns running back Lee Suggs, broke Jim Brown's single-game rushing record for rushing attempts in a game. I believe he had 38 rushing attempts. But anyway, I want to go back to the Phil Dawson clip. We're going to play this really quick. Bro would have had a 3.9 GPA. Well, that's the thing. It's hard to get motivated about. Never mind. I don't want to. I was going to make a segue there. But, all right, here is what I consider the loudest doink in NFL history. Phil Dawson.
He's on to try a 43-yard field goal. And he is kicking with the wind. And it's off the post, no good. Why not?
And that was a microcosm of that entire game. It really was. That game was just miserable. But anyway. By the way, Jeffrin, are you still here? So week 17, season finale. The Browns finally win. Browns snap a 9-game losing streak and defeat the Texans 22-14 to end the season 4-12. And a little bit of trivia here. This is the second year in a row the Browns ended the season with a 22-14 win on the road. So that's kind of another coincidence there. Kelly Holcomb returned in this game. That's probably why they won. Took the place of Luke McCown. and the Browns ended up winning 22-14. Another white whale. I was talking about white whales earlier, games that I have no footage of. This is another one I cannot find anywhere. I would kill to find this game on DVD somewhere, but I've never been able to find any footage. The NFL primetime recap isn't that long, and yeah, I mean, there's just not that much footage of this game out there. But anyway, it's been a while since I've shown a clip, so we're going to play the highlights from this game.
Not today. They'll be better.
See, it's only 59 seconds. There's hardly any footage from this game.
Browns and the Texans. And the Texans were a team that really knocked Jacksonville off their keister. Meanwhile, Don Capers saying, okay, well, we did that. Now let's try to finish 500. But Alvin McKinley delivers a big sack on David Carr in Cleveland. Cleveland, at least for Terry Robisky here at the end, playing hard. They sacked the Carr 6 times. Carr can move for a big guy, too. The whole team's after.
Yeah, you watch him run here. He has tremendous courage. You know, he runs downfield. He very seldom slides. He's going to get what he can. Superior athlete in this game playing quarterback.
He needs a lawnmower, though, after the play. Meanwhile, Dominic Davis is in. He had 103 yards at 22-14 Cleveland. So here we are, a minute and a half to go, the onside kick. And the good hands team all day long on these onside kicks and all the games you'll see had it going. And so Carr and the Texans do not get the 500.
See, like, that's hardly any footage, and that's really all there is out there. I think even the NFL Films recap was like, there was some glitch on the website back in the day, and it was only like 30 seconds. Only like 30 seconds was uploaded. So this game, there's hardly any footage from it. I would kill for footage of it. Not literally. Just joking. Anyway, so that concludes the 2004 Cleveland Browns season. 20 years ago. Hard to believe, 20 years, because that's like me in 2044 looking back at this current Cleveland Browns team. You know, it's crazy. But anyway, the last thing I want to say about this team, in my opinion, this was the first truly awful season that the Browns had in 99, or since 99, sorry. Because yes, in 99 and 2000 they were bad, but they were just an expansion team. I mean, they had no expectations. And, you know, at that point, people were just happy the Browns were back, right? And then in 2001 and 2002, they actually were pretty good. They were pretty decent to good. And then in 2003, yes, they were 5-11, but they didn't have a 9-game losing streak, and they didn't have as many injuries. And they still had they still had Holcomb and Couch by the end of the year, so it wasn't as bleak. It was unlike this season, like 04, it was like they were trotting out Luke McCown, and you just didn't even have a prayer. I mean, you were like praying a rosary that they would even like come within 10 points. It was like just awful, right? And then all the injuries, the coach quitting halfway through the season. I mean, it was just a nightmare. Anyway, let's catch up on chat here. You become a Browns fan and they immediately get worse. Maybe you're the problem. Zach Ardo's got to tone it down here. Oh, by the way, tell Big Rob if he ever ignores anything I send him on Instagram again, we're going to have problems. Please relay that message to him. I forgot to say that earlier. I want them to have more big runs like the William Green sideline run. Yeah. Anyway, this is the first truly awful season. And I have a note here in the bottom left corner. It's worth noting the Browns play the toughest schedule of any NFL team between 1989 and 2013 based on strength of opponent. Now, I read conflicting reports. Some said it was actually the 5th toughest schedule. Regardless, even if it's within the top 5 toughest schedules since 1989, I mean, that's pretty brutal. So that certainly wasn't helping their cause. But anyway, that wraps up the 2004 season. So moving on. We're moving on the presentation now. And I want to emphasize, I am not doing a year-by-year, regime-by-regime breakdown. That's not what this is going to be. I think I may have briefly touched on that at the top. That's not what we're doing. Like, I'm not going to talk about Crennel and then Mangini, and we're not doing that. I just wanted to retrospectively look at the 2004 Browns because it's been 20 years. And that was the first year I became a fan. So, moving on. Favorite win since 2004? What is my favorite win since 2004? What does the chat think? I want to hear some guesses in the chat. Now, this is a pretty obvious one. It's not some like obscure thing. It's not an obscure game. This is one that everybody should be able to guess. And I think most people would probably say the same thing. So I'm going to wait for some answers to roll in here. A lot of silence here. I don't like this. So I'll try and... All right. It says there are 11 viewers, so there's got to be somebody watching here. Versus Pitt to clinch playoff. Close. You're very close, but no, it's not that. The game we closed out 0-16. See, Zach Ardo just is begging for a timeout, but anyway, okay. Well, I'll answer the question here since nobody seems too interested, unfortunately. Wild card game at the Steelers 2020. Come on, it's so obvious. On January 10th, 2021 or January 11th, 2021. I don't know the exact date. The 6th seed Cleveland Browns, who finished 11-5, took on the number 3 seed Steelers, who were 12-4 and won the North. And by the way, the Steelers totally collapsed on the stretch that year. They were 11-0 and finished 12-4. So, anyway, the 11-5 Browns take on the 12-4 Steelers, and the Browns defy all the odds and end up beating the Steelers 48-37. And I say defied all the odds because, going into it, I mean, nobody was giving them a chance. Because if you remember, they had players test positive with COVID, so they were out. And Kevin Stefanski tested positive, so he wasn't even. They didn't even have their coach on the sideline. I mean, nobody, including myself, was giving them a chance to win. But they end up humiliating the Steelers, and they led 28-0 in the first quarter. And this win snapped a 17-game losing streak in Pittsburgh. First and only win I have ever seen the Browns pull off in Pittsburgh. Stunning, right? Once again, I unfortunately cannot show highlights because it would risk the stream getting shut down because it's in the NFL's copyright system, automated system, whatever. So, one last thing to say about this game, and I'm not trying to bring up anything negative about it, but it is unfortunate that we should have pounded the Steelers. I mean, we should have won by like 20 points at least. We probably could have won by 30 if we just kept our foot on the pedal, right? But we got too lax in the second half with the prevent defense, and it got kind of dicey at one point. It was 30. They cut it to 35-23, and I remember panicking, like, here we go again. But they ended up pulling it off, so whatever. No sense harping on that part of the game. Could Brant Boyer start for us this year? Alex Van Pelt called hell of a game. Should have been calling plays since then. Yeah. I gotta say, Stefanski didn't do a bad job last year, though. Steelers, of course. Ribs and whiskey. Yeah, you nailed it. Definitely the Steelers game. And that game led to this iconic image of Ben Roethlisberger crying on the sideline. I mean, that is just glorious to look at. This is very frameable, by the way. I need this picture hanging up somewhere. Because Roethlisberger made us cry for 20 years. It was nice to return the favor, even if it was just for one night. Anyway, moving on. Most heartbreaking loss. Most heartbreaking loss since 2004. Any guesses? Anybody have a guess? No one's going to get it right. So I guess this exercise is kind of pointless because this is more of an obscure choice by myself. Most people would say the Chiefs playoff game, I imagine, right? Most normal people, but I'm not normal, unfortunately. I just want to see if anybody's a guess. 2018 in Baltimore? No. Not 2018 in Baltimore. The Cowboys game where Winslow. No, not that game. No one's going to guess it, so we might as well just reveal it here. It was week 11, 2006 versus the Steelers. And mostly for personal reasons. Not like I said, not a game most Browns fans would remember probably. This was the first time I experienced legitimate heartbreak at the hands of the Cleveland Browns. Like the first time I was like sick after a game. That's happened numerous times since then. But this is the first time I was like ill. Like I couldn't believe what I saw. And was like physically like repulsed, if that makes any sense. And why it hurt so much. So this description is going to sound like every Browns loss the past 20 years, but Browns controlled most of the game, seemed to have it in the bag, but Big Ben broke their hearts at the end, something we've become very accustomed to, unfortunately. By the way, Robert in the chat says 2007 loss in Pitt. Very good choice. That was probably that game from that year that I would have said made me sick. But anyway, we had this game under control, and Big Ben just broke our hearts at the very end. Would have been the first win I saw over the Steelers. Because, like I said, like you were well aware if you've watched from the beginning, I became a fan in 2004. By the way, hold on, before we get to that, is DVR enabled? Yes, it is. Good. So people can go back if they're joining late. This would have been the first win I saw over the Steelers. Because we got swept in 04, we got swept in 05. And, so I'd never seen a win over the Steelers. I'd seen a win over the Bengals. I'd seen a win over the Ravens. Never over the Steelers. And that just would have meant a lot to me at the time because, the rivalry at that time, like I was briefly talking about, it still was more of like had more of the old school feel to it, at least to a degree. And a win over the Steelers on this day would have, or it could have reinvigorated the rivalry and kept it from fading because it would have prevented that 12-game winning streak the Steelers went on over the Browns. Remember from 03 to 09, Steelers beat the Browns 12 consecutive times. And it would have prevented that had they done that. And it was a classic AFC North game, man. It was chippy, it was muddy, it was smack talk in the pregame. It was classic AFC North football. And had we won, it just would have been like, we would have punched them back, and it could have made things interesting again. But of course, Big Ben pulls a rabbit out of the hat and ends up stealing one. I missed the beginning of the show. Was Couch Hail Mary to KG get... No, because that happened before 2004, and I became a fan in 2004. The worst for me was in 2003 in New England. Oh, that was terrible, too. Yeah, that was awful. That's top 5 for sure. Because we've had so many epic losses that doesn't even make the top 3. Chicago Bears, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, that one, I don't think there's been a loss like that since in the entire NFL. I mean, that one is just insanity. But anyway, moving on. I got some clips I want to show from this game. This clip will prove to you how heartbreaking this game was. I mean, look at this. Oh, look at that ad. That's so edgy. Such a psyop. Anyway, so look at this. I want you to look at the score here. 20-10. Browns are up 20-10 with 5 minutes. I mean, if you're like just passing by and you're looking at the score and the time in the game, you've got to be thinking, oh, the Browns have this in the bag, right? Especially in 2006 when like the rules didn't favor the offense quite as much as they do now. And as a result, there's so many epic comebacks and, people could score 2 touchdowns in 2 minutes. But at this point, it's like a 10-point lead with 5 minutes left. It's like this the Browns appear to have it in control. And watch this next play.
5 catches, 49 yards for Hines Ward. First down and 10. Roethlisberger again. Slides out of the pocket. Stays on his feet. And gets rid of it. Oh, my goodness.
You'll watch here. You see it. That's Nick Eason who comes out, gets the hit, and that is an NFL policy right there that has come back to bite him. That's a sack that the guy can't finish off because he'll get fined and he'll get a penalty for hitting the quarterback in the strike zone. You talk about a guy having to let up because of the rules changes. Nick Eason comes in, he knows he can't hit the guy hard or throw him to...
Unbelievable. I mean, if Roethlisberger gets sacked there, it's 3rd and long. Oh, no, it's 2nd and long, I guess. And they probably don't score a touchdown on that drive. And the Browns probably win that game. If he gets sacked there, the Browns probably win that game. Anyway, Anyway, I don't I wasn't able to find a good highlight reel from this game that had good video quality. So the best I could do is a short SportsCenter clip, but it doesn't do it justice because it skips right to the end, but we'll at least watch it.
But good, solid Rust Belt animosity here. Ben Roethlisberger, 48 yards passing through the first 3 quarters, but 224 in the 4th quarter, including this little one to Willie Parker. A little shovel pass. PAT, good. Steelers lead 24-20. They won their last 5 games in Cleveland. Last chance for the Browns. On the Steelers, 22. Charlie Fry throwing the magic beam for Braylon Edwards. Tough week to be a Michigan man. No! Steelers win it 24-20.
That drop by Braylon Edwards was like one of the most infamous plays in my mind for like years. I mean, oh man, that game couldn't get any more heartbreaking. Let's watch that again. Now it didn't matter because I think he did step out of bounds, but still, just to look like that, oh man, what a tease! Such a heartbreaking game. Forgot how bad this loss was. Oh, it was awful. And for personal reasons, that remains my most heartbreaking loss. But getting back on track here. Okay, moving on. Favorite moment since 2004? Favorite moment since 2004? Anybody have a guess? No, in fact, I'm not even going to pose that question because nobody's going to guess correctly because it's kind of a trick answer, actually. It's not really a moment. So I'll just move right along. It's actually a series of events or a series of moments. It's the Browns beating up on the Bengals from 2018 to present. So from 2018 on, so Baker's rookie year, the Browns have like owned the Bengals, and like owned is putting it lightly. I mean, we have just like destroyed them. Yeah, they had a garbage victory last year in the season finale because we were playing nobody. But I mean, I believe the Browns are 9-3 in the last 12 games, and if you don't count that game, 9-2. So I mean, and by the way, one of their wins was like when the team quit on Freddie Kitchens in the last game of the year back in 2019. I mean, the Bengals have like almost never beat the Browns in like 6 years. It's hilarious. And this is the first time I have witnessed the Browns dominate a division opponent. Because it's usually the other way around. You know, like my entire life, we've just been getting beat up by AFC North teams. You know, I mean, it used to be we would never beat the Ravens and Steelers, and then sometimes we'd beat the Bengals. And then there was even a period where we wouldn't beat the Bengals. There was a losing streak to the Bengals at one point. But that script finally flipped, and we now have a division opponent's number. We have completely owned the Bengals. Baker's game in 2020 in Cincinnati was awesome. Oh, yeah. Denzel picking off that pass in the end zone. Oh, the pick six. That is still my phone background. It's been my phone background for like 3 years. Anyway, Baker went 6-1 versus the Browns. Thrashing them every time, especially in Paul Brown Stadium. Baker Mayfield would just go crazy in Paul Brown Stadium every time. I believe he tossed 4 touchdowns his rookie year. Then in 2020, he breaks their hearts going down the field in a 2-minute drill and connecting with Donovan Peoples-Jones. And then, of course, in 2021, just beating their ass. Have the Browns ever had a culture, even just for a little? No, but they're building one now, I would say, with Stefanski and Barry for sure. But anyway, another notable thing from this domination of Cincinnati is Burrow being 1-5 versus the Browns. Joe Burrow is 1-5 versus the Cleveland Browns. And that, I got to tell you, is one of the most satisfying things I've ever experienced as a Browns fan, because Joe Burrow is, the Messiah, right? That's what everybody says. And he's the next Tom Brady, Joe Cool. And then every time he comes to Cleveland, he just, or not even comes to Cleveland, anytime he plays Cleveland, he just completely folds and looks below average. It's just the greatest thing of all time. I mean, look at this image of Myles Garrett. I mean, it's a perfect representation right there. Another picture that's very frameable. And, what made it even better is I had this friend who was a Bengals fan, and he was so obnoxious, that I actually developed some disdain for the Bengals. The Bengals used to be one of the most preferred team in the AFC North for sure, right? I never hated them as much as I did the Ravens and Steelers. But this kid was so annoying. It's I grew to just I grew to dislike the Bengals, honestly more than the Steelers at times. So it was really fun to just, shove it in his face every time the Browns would just punk them. Boy, that was fun. Chase says, my only game that I was at, that 2019 game at the Bengals. Nice. Yeah, 33-23, I believe, was the score. Anyway, moving on. Oh, this is a little funny meme I made a couple years ago. It's the dictionary definition of the word punking. The Cleveland Browns' domination over the Cincinnati Bengals since 2018. This includes major blowouts in 2021 and 2022, 41-16 and 32-13 respectively. I need to update that and also add 24-3 in last year's season opener. So, Jeffrey Champion says, do you think we'll see Jameis Winston in this game at any time? Only if it's by injury, right? Or if the Deshaun Watson stuff goes way out of control and they have no choice but to cut him or something. Other examples of teams doing that, when Aaron Hernandez was charged with murder, charged with murder, the Patriots just instantly cut him. If there's something like that, yeah, then I think you could see Jameis Winston, but I don't think they would just bench Deshaun Watson. They have way too much invested in the guy. Whether you like him or not, I mean, they gave up 3 first-round picks and more, and are paying him over $200 million guaranteed. I mean, they're not just going to bench him, right? So, anyway, favorite team or era? Any guesses what my favorite team or era is from 1999? This one, if you're familiar with me and my stream, it shouldn't be that hard to guess. I'll let people in the chat write their answers. Catching up on some text messages here. Shed a tear 'cause I'm missing you. By the way, Jack Wynn doesn't know what song that is. All right, sorry. I was catching up on text. I gotta read chat again and then start the presentation up. Yeah, but he went out there and put up a 9.7 quarterback rating. I don't care how much money he's making. Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying I don't see that happening. If you followed Stefanski through the years, they don't bench quarterbacks really, unless it's like PJ Walker or something. I mean, they stuck with Baker all throughout 2021 when it would have made much more sense to play Case Keenum. Stefanski and Barry all seem they wouldn't bench Jacoby Brissett. There were definitely times we were calling for Josh Dobbs, right? And they would never bench Jacoby Brissett. They don't really make decisions like that. This is the first regime that doesn't really listen to the fan outrage, I think. Stefanski's era, 2007, the year Derek Anderson went to the Pro Bowl. 2014 was 3/4 of the season. Anyway, it was Cornell Savage. So I can't hear you. Someone's saying they can't hear me. Can you guys hear me? I just got a text. Someone said they can't hear me. I hear you. Okay, so he might not have known that I wasn't talking for a couple minutes or something. I think he's playing mind games. Zach Ardo just desperately wants to be unmodded, I think. Anyway, it was the Cornell Savage era. So this is my childhood team. Huh. He says, guess it's a me issue. That's interesting. Why would it just be Zach Ardo not being able to hear me? That's, Is it because I said the word psyop earlier? Are they messing with my stream? Anyway. This is my childhood team. Everybody, like, if you talk to, like, is this Dan? Is this the great Dan? Man, you guys, I got to give you guys credit. You've done a wonderful job promoting the stream because it seems like everybody and their mom is watching right now. I'm getting people who never tuning in right now. So this is wonderful. Anyway, if you talk to any old-time Browns fans, when I say old-time, I mean like 50 plus, right? 50 plus years old. They always go back to the 80s, right? Bernie Kosar, that's their team. So for me, and by the way, I think that's just very common as you get older. You always look back, for nostalgic purposes. And for me, it's the Cornell Savage team. I mean, this was like right in the prime of childhood. This is when I was coming of age, first really starting to understand the game. Because in 2004, I didn't fully understand the rules still, fully. So this is the team that I kind of first fell in love with and got attached to. So, and it was a very talented team, by the way. Braylon Edwards, Kellen Winslow, Jamal Lewis, Joe Thomas, Eric Steinbach. I mean, very talented team on the offensive side of the ball, at least. And the core of this team lasted about 4 years, which is like an eternity by Brown standards, right? Because how many 2-year rebuilds have there been? The 2-year rebuilds started after the Cornell Savage era. But I think that's part of it too, because a lot of time passed, like with this team stayed together. So anyway, this is definitely my childhood team, my preferred team. Of course, I made the famous documentary, The Legend of the 2007 Cleveland Browns. That was about this team. And, that was a labor of love. It didn't feel like work at all. When I was making that, it was just pure joy, it's the old expression, like, if you do what you love, you won't work a day in your life. Well, that's clearly true because that never felt like work. And it took about 2 or 3 months, back in the fall of 2018. Anyway, getting sidetracked here. Unfortunately, that documentary is not as relevant as it used to be. And here's why. Because at that point in 2018, the 07 Browns were the last good season we had, right? So we were constantly looking back to that. That's all we had to look back to. But since then, there have been other good seasons, right? In 2020, they made the playoffs and won a playoff game. In 2023, they just made the playoffs. Even in 2018, Baker's rookie year, that was a great year. That's remembered as a great year because of how fun the second half of the season was. So there's really unfortunately for me, there's no real reason to look back at the 07 Browns anymore. So that's certainly not as relevant. Best Savage draft pick, biggest bust. I would say his best draft pick has to be Joe Thomas, obviously. Biggest bust, got to go Brady Quinn. Two quick, easy answers there. Coincidentally, were drafted one after the other. I got a clip from that documentary here. I want to share with everybody. By the way, Zach Ardo, can you hear me now? I'm just like the AT&T guy or the Sprint guy. Can you hear me now? That's a reference the younger viewers might not pick up on. All right, so this is a clip from the 07 documentary this is like my favorite part of the video.
But it's all ancient history now, and no amount of complaining is going to change the past.
Anyway, that's my favorite part of the video. Yes, it's clearly, I got that from the Fab 5 documentary. There was a clip from that documentary where it's a very similar sequence with the same song. Yes, I ripped it off. Anyway, let me send a quick text here to get somebody back to the stream who was here earlier. Hank Fraley forgot about that dude's center. Yeah. All right, final thoughts on the Romeo Crennel, Phil Savage era. It's my opinion, I said this in the documentary, they should have been given one more year because, yes, they had a very disappointing season, but they were decimated with injuries. And the last 5 games, they didn't have a professional quarterback starting. You know, Ken Dorsey and Bruce Gridkowski are not going to cut it. So I just think for once the Browns should have just it was Randy Lerner calling the shots, and he was always influenced by public opinion, so that's why he blew up the team. But they should have just been like, okay, let's regroup, let's come back, let's get rid of any cancers from the locker room, and we're battle tested now. Let's see what we can do. Or if they didn't want to go that route, they should have absolutely hired Bruce Arians as the head coach. Bruce Arians was available at that point, and he just came off winning his second Super Bowl as offensive coordinator with the Steelers. So they should have hired Bruce Arians. I mean, he was always begging for the Browns job. That's something that just makes me want to throw up every time I think about it. How he was on TV at one point begging for the job, and they don't even interview him. Just sickening. But I mean, imagine, I have this note here. Imagine Arians with Edwards and Winslow and Jurevicius and, Anyway, moving on. Oh, by the way, is this real? So this moves on to this next part of the presentation. I want everybody's thoughts. Is this real? somebody with the username Braylon Edwards commented on one of my videos a couple years ago and left a very angry comment because it was a video that was not very favorable of Braylon. I think it was like a compilation of him dropping passes or something. And I don't know what to think of this. It could be a very elaborate troll job, but something about this makes me think it's real because, like, the level of detail. I mean, he's talking about stuff I didn't even know about. Like, what was he talking about? Denzel Douglas, I don't know who that is, needed a heart transplant at the Cleveland Clinic in 07, and I was there every step of the way. Like, I didn't even know about that, and how many people would know about that? That's why I lean towards this being real. But I don't know if it's actually real. So I want everybody's thoughts on this. Do you guys think this is real? '07 game in Baltimore home and Seattle were great win. Oh, absolutely. Overlooking Arians is sickening. Yep, sure is. Especially not even interviewing him. Having Kyle Shanahan as the OC was the best offense that's ever looked. Oh yeah, with Brian Hoyer. That's another thing that's sickening is having Kyle Shanahan in the building and then they just run him out of town for an unprepared drunk. Normally I would say you were crazy, but I lean slightly. I mean, I know. I think that might be him. So, anyway, that's Braylon Edwards possibly bitching me out. I've tried to make peace with him. I've extended many olive branches. Like, I deleted the video. I responded to his comment. I DM'd him on Instagram, like kind of explaining, like, I don't know if he sees it, but Braylon, I'm trying to make peace here, buddy. You know, I mean, 12-year-old Ramen Robbie would be decimated, would be demoralized to learn that Braylon Edwards hates him. So, you know, keep messaging. Does this page show more signs? Yes, but not in ways that I want to say on stream. It's kind of hard to explain. All right, favorite play since 2004. I'm not going to bother asking the chat because this is so obscure, nobody's ever going to guess this. And I know this is going to be an unbelievably underwhelming answer. Zach Ardo is going to have a field day with this because this kid loves just trolling about everything. And again, it's more for a personal reason, so I will let this play out, and then we'll get to the commentary after. But anyway, it's Kellen Winslow, a catch he had against the Falcons in 2006. So we're going to play this.
Ball comes out of his hands quick.
And again, I'm kind of laughing already because I know the reaction to this is going to be like very underwhelming.
Like, sometimes it's a lot easier for a quarterback to see.
First down. That was a big play. 35-yard line. Good time for Fry. And looking for Winslow. What a catch! He beat Rossum. What a spectacular grab by Kellen Winslow. A 36-yard pickup and a gain to the 29-yard line.
Well, this is not a catch that you normally see a tight end make. Just watch this adjustment on this throw. I mean, he has to actually come back inside over Rossum and make that catch. And that's a mismatch right there. And that's something we saw earlier in the game, the big throw from Charlie Fry. We talked about Allen Rossum just being 5'8".
So anyway, that's mostly. I mean, that's more for personal reasons, right? Like Kellen Winslow, and again, disclaimer: I'm talking about the football player, not the human being, right? Kellen Winslow was my favorite player as a kid, by far. I mean, this guy was like a legitimate star in the NFL for that brief window. I mean, when he was with the Browns and actually playing, he was right up there with Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates as like the best tight end in the league. Had amazing hands. I mean, super reliable hands. The guy never dropped anything. And he just had swag to him. And, you know, I don't know. He was always my favorite player. And This game in particular, you know, the Browns were on the road against Michael Vick. They were big underdogs, and they pulled off an upset win. And I remember it was such a great play. That always just stands out to me. So much so, I'm going to play it again here. Let's watch it again.
Good time for Fry. And looking for Winslow. What a catch! He beat Rossum. What a spectacular grab by Kellen Winslow.
And he was, by the way, this is him on like one leg. Imagine if he never had that knee injury or whatever happened to him in Dallas, right? That highlight shows top wide receiver body control. Yeah, I mean the guy was an immense talent. I remember McDonald's was selling Charlie Fry that first year. Yeah, I think they had a lot of Browns bobblehead promotions over the years. Winslow had an incredible fourth down catch versus the Ravens in 2007. Oh yeah, I mean he was something. The funny thing is, if you look at his career, like he actually had a pretty good run there. Like, even when he went to Tampa Bay, he still had a pretty good run. It just was underwhelming overall, right? He didn't live up to the number 6 overall pick in the draft overall. But, I mean, he proved he could play in this league. It's too bad he just was a nut job. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he was always like that or if it legitimately was CTE. Who knows, but that's that clip. Sorry. Favorite, I just gave it away there. I keep skipping ahead, damn it. Favorite player since 2004. Any guesses? Anybody got any guesses? In case you didn't see it, you may have seen it, but some of you may have been looking away for a split second. Jason Campbell, hilarious. Okay. Go second favorite. I don't really have a second favorite. I mean, Nick Chubb, maybe. I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough, unfortunately. Lee Suggs, Colt McCoy. All right. Favorite player, Jarvis Juice Landry. Jarvis Juice Landry. Acquired from the Dolphins via trade in the 2018 offseason. Became the Browns' most dependable, durable receiver, Pro Bowler, team leader, although he wasn't much of a leader that last year when all that OBJ drama was going on. You know, he chose his friend over the team. I thought that was pretty lame. But anyway, 288 total receptions, 3,560 yards. Which might not seem like a huge number, but you got to remember he wasn't like a game-breaking receiver. He was a lot of stuff over the middle underneath. You know, he was more of a slot guy in a lot of ways. So he wasn't going to have like a ton of like big games. He was more just like kind of like a Hines Ward. I don't know if that's a good analogy. I don't know what Hines Ward box score were like, but Jarvis is mine too. He brought heart. He was what Braylon thought Braylon was. How is this not Brian Hoyer? Yeah. Anyway, 19 touchdowns. Again, not a huge number, but he never was a big touchdown guy. That's not what his thing was. And by the way, I'm getting these stats from StatMuse, so take it with a grain of salt. They've gotten stuff wrong before. Like for a while, they infamously were claiming that Lamar Jackson had lost to the Browns 3 times when he had only lost to them twice. I think he has lost them 3 times now, but at the time that he didn't. So they get stuff wrong. You gotta double check with StatMuse. I can still remember when Jarvis in that presser smiled and said, "Happy to be here." Hall of Fame is the Hall of Fame in Jarvis Landry's future. Let's talk about that for a second. So I brought this up to somebody a couple months ago, and they laughed me out of the building, but if you look at the reception totals, I mean, these are elite. 84, 110, 94, 112, 81, 83. And by the way, had he stayed in Miami, I mean, he probably would have continued the 90 to 100. He probably would have continued being in the 90 to 100 range. But when he got to Cleveland, he was, I don't think he was being asked to do quite as much. So that's why the numbers went down a little bit. But still 80 plus grabs. That's a great season. And then he had 72 in 2020, but that's only because he was suspended the last game. He probably would have got to 80. Or not suspended, he had COVID, sorry. He probably would have had another 80 plus seasons. So, I mean, that's a great run right there. 2014 to 2020. But then after that, he just broke down and age and injuries caught up to him. I would say probably not Hall of Fame, only 3,000-yard seasons. But I was reading a Browns book, and the author, I forget who, posed that question. So I know I'm not crazy for thinking about this. I don't know. Jarvis was great till OBJ. Sorry, I shut up. I got love for Jarvis, though. Yeah, I don't know. Hall of Fame's probably not going to happen, but I just thought I'd pose the question for everybody. I'll be right back. I'm going to go take a bathroom break. I'm going to play this Kellen Winslow clip one more time while I use the bathroom.
Ball comes out of his hands quickly. Sometimes it's a lot easier for a quarterback to see.
First down. That was a big play. 35-yard line. Good time for Fry. And looking for Winslow. What a catch! He beat Rossum. What a spectacular grab by Kellen Winslow. A 36-yard pickup and a gain to the 29-yard line.
Well, this is not a catch that you normally see a tight end make. Just watch this adjustment on this throw. I mean, he has to actually come back inside over Rossum and make that catch. And that's a mismatch right there. And that's something we saw earlier in the game, the big throw from Charlie Fry. We talked about Allen Rossum just being fun.
We're back here. We're back on the Ramen Robbie live stream. Thank you for tuning in, all 9 of you right now. Jordan spent most of his career face down on the ground. That's a classic Ohio State joke. That was hilarious. Oh my God. By the way, did you relay the message to Big Rob that if he ever ignores me again, we're gonna have problems? I need you to tell him that. All right, moving on. My record at Browns games. So this is basically going over every Browns game I've attended, which has been 10. There have been 10 games I've been to. And I have a 5-5 record. You seem very scared. 5-5 record, so that's 500, which, I mean, considering how awful the Browns have been, that's not too bad, And I should be 6-4. We'll get to that in a second. But quickly, I just want to go over every game I've been to. And by the way, this picture is a picture of some of the tickets that I was able to find. I uploaded it to Patreon a couple years ago. So that's no longer a Patreon exclusive, I guess. But first game I went to was 34-31 versus the Eagles. We already talked about that. 27-13 versus the Ravens in 2007. That was a fun time. I remember that was Jamal Lewis's first game against the Ravens. That was kind of noteworthy. I remember I brought binoculars to the game, and I remember I have a specific memory of looking at Willie McGinnis on the field. And then I also remember seeing Troy Smith warming up on the Ravens sideline. Anyway, versus the Raiders in 2009, I believe that was week 16. Noteworthy game from that. Yeah, I was about to bring this up. So Jack Wynn in chat here had the brilliant idea to leave the game before the half was over. And I would probably just use the bathroom and go to concession stands and all that stuff. And as a result, we missed Sebastian Janikowski kick a 61-yard field goal, which, I mean, yeah, it was for the Raiders, but how many times do you see a 60-plus yard field goal in person? So shame on him for that. Anyway, 2 years later, saw them play the Steelers, lose 13-11. Nothing noteworthy there. I think it came down to a Hail Mary from I think Seneca Wallace threw up a Hail Mary at the end, and Evan Moore had a shot at it, but the next year versus the Redskins, that was noteworthy because that was Kirk Cousins' first start. That was his first NFL start. So, and he torched us. Next year against the Bengals, that was Brian Hoyer's first win in Cleveland. The hometown hero. That was his first win as a starter in Cleveland. 2016 versus the Chargers. That was the Christmas Eve game, our only win that season. That game was an absolute riot with the group I was with. A lot of boozing was involved. I'm not endorsing that behavior. I'm just saying. Yeah. And the year after that, Bengals in 2017, we got throttled. What a miserable game that was. First of all, I was staying at Zach Ardo's house that weekend, and somebody at the house, somebody who was also staying there, snored obnoxiously loud, and I'm a very light sleeper. And as a result, I got probably 45 minutes of sleep that entire night. It was a disaster. Terrible night of sleep. And on top of that, the next day, we're sitting in 80-degree weather, the sun just roasting in the sun. It's right in us, and we're sitting in the upper deck in the nosebleeds. Nightmare of a day. Awful game. One year, my girlfriend and I went to 4 home games, and they lost all of them. Oh, yeah. Anyway, 2018 versus the Jets. That was the famous game where Baker Mayfield came in and relieved, what's his name? Tyrod Taylor. And I was there. The atmosphere in the stadium that day was so electric. I've never seen anything like it. That's got to be probably the best win I've ever seen. Or the Christmas Eve one. I mean, that was pretty great too. And then the last game I've been to, it's been 3 years now. I got to make my return to Cleveland Brown Stadium. Or sorry, Huntington Bank Field, whatever they're calling it now. But the last game I was at was against the Raiders in 2021, the COVID Bowl, when like half the Browns team was out because of COVID, and we ended up losing on a last-second field goal, 16-14. The most heartbreaking loss I've ever seen in person. Because had we won that game, we would have moved to 8-6 and had sole possession of first place. And that was Baker. That was 2021, when the Baker's shoulder year. So as tumultuous as that season was, we had a chance to be in first place through 15 weeks. So anyway, that's a quick look at all the Browns games I've been to. I need to get back to another game here soon. I'm 5-5 overall, like I said, not bad. The missus asks, what's the most points the Browns have scored in a game since you watched? It would have to be 48 against the Bengals in 2004, which we talked about at the beginning of the stream. Moving on here. Now, this is every Browns game I've missed. And it's possible I'm forgetting one or two. Here's every Browns game I was not able to watch on TV. So the first one was Bengals at Browns 2004. That was the Andre Davis 99-yard touchdown game. I didn't get to watch that game because my brother was a freshman at Ohio State, and that was his. And they were doing Parents' Weekend at Ohio State that year. So we went down to visit him, and we were driving back that Sunday, so we didn't get to watch the game. I think we got back, and there was like a minute or two left or something, but that was the reason. Didn't get to see that game. The next year, I didn't get to see Dolphins at Browns 2005, and this one deals with somebody in the chat here. So my brother was on the academic challenge team for his high school, and they were doing the taping that day for Academic Challenge, which was some stupid cheesy show that they used to have on like Channel 5 or something. And as a result, I didn't get to watch the Browns shut out the Dolphins 22-0. That was the game Reuben Drones had that epic like 75-yard touchdown. Heartbreaking to this day. But anyway, next game I didn't get to see was Browns at Panthers 2006. I know you all are so. I know you guys are all so interested in this, by the way, particularly Zach Ardo. But Browns at Panthers 2006, I did not get to watch that game either. Our family took a little weekend trip to Falling Water. Does anybody know what Falling Water is? I couldn't tell you what it is, actually. Is it a museum? Can somebody help me out here? I don't remember what it is, but we went there, and as a result, I was not able to watch the Browns take on the Panthers in 2006. I did listen to it on the radio, I believe, though, on the way back. Next game, Bengals at Browns 2009. That's another Parents' Weekend story. So my other brother was at his freshman year at Miami, Ohio. And it was Parents' Weekend there, so we went down to go see him and then drove back Sunday, so we had to miss the game. I've referenced that game earlier in the stream. That was the game Carson Palmer had a long run in overtime and then set up the Bengals game-winning field goal at the end of overtime. Almost ended in a tie. A place designed by famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright, I believe. Okay. Thanks for the trivia there. Not being sarcastic. The next one, Raiders at Browns 2015. Now, that's a big gap there, 6 years. I feel like I may have missed something else. I just don't remember. I'd have to go look at every schedule, and I didn't have time while I was putting this together. So, but anyway, this one involves Zach Ardo here. So, Raiders at Browns 2015. That was week 3. Pulled an all-nighter. We were at Ohio State. We pulled an all-nighter that night. You know, staying up drinking, having a bunch of fun, and when it was time for kickoff, I think we all passed out or something. And on top of that, they were not showing the Browns in Columbus. They were showing the Bengals-Ravens game. So did not get to watch that game either. Browns-Vikings 2017, that was the London game. Did not see that game either because, once again, it involves drinking. I mean, cut me some slack. This is college, Ohio State, right? We were out drinking the night before, so I was hungover. And then on top of that, we didn't have NFL Network at my house. So that would have meant I would have had to get up at 9:30 because get up earlier than that. The game started at 9:30 because they were playing in London, I believe. And then I was supposed to drive to a bar hungover and go watch the 0-7 Browns. Wasn't going to happen. Sorry. If somebody out there wants to question my Browns fandom, go ahead. But that just wasn't going to happen that day. Browns at Jets 2020. Browns at Jets 2020. That was another game where some Browns players were not playing due to COVID. And the Browns had a chance to clinch the playoffs that day, but they didn't. They lost 23-16. I think Baker had a couple fumbles in that game or something. That game, again, it involves drinking again. So, was out the night before. And I forget why. I think I didn't have cable at this point, so I had to stream all the Browns games. So it wasn't as convenient as like just flipping on the TV. And on top of that, I think I just accidentally slept through. I think my alarm I forgot to set my alarm or something like that. So missed that game for the most part. And then the last one was Chargers at Browns 2022. This one was not my fault. So we were flying back from Miami, Florida that weekend. And we were stuck on the tarmac for like 3 hours. Because there was like a lightning storm or something. And it was just like a nightmare. Like I remember I had a cold. I was sick. There was something else going on. Like I was like crunched in the middle of a seat or something. And I was missing the Browns game on top of that. We were supposed to like get back in time to watch the Browns, I think. And I ended up missing that game. So anyway, that's a quick little rundown of every Browns game I've missed. If you found that interesting, I am flattered. If not, I totally understand. So moving along here. Jeffrin, are you still here? interviewing Kelly Holcomb. I want to point this out. So, interviewing Kelly Holcomb. I got the chance to interview Holcomb in 2021, and that's one of the coolest things I've ever done. Obviously, honestly, because I talked about that famous shootout versus the Bengals in 2004, which I believe might still be the second highest scoring game in NFL history. And he was the quarterback for the Browns that day. And like, imagine watching that game that day and then like being told I would have the chance to talk to him for like 3 hours someday. I mean, that's cool. And he was great. He had a lot of information to share. He said, call him anytime. I should reach out to him again. So that's one of the coolest things I've done. And by the way, if you're wondering why I haven't done another interview, it's not for a lack of trying. I have tried hard to put together another interview. It just hasn't worked. A lot of these players just surprisingly are unresponsive. I thought, and no disrespect to any of them, but since they've been out of the spotlight for so long, I thought they would have like jumped at the opportunity to get interviewed, but a lot of them don't seem interested for some reason. Kevin Johnson, I've emailed his gym that he runs countless times, never get a response. And I even say, hey, can you please just respond if he's not interested so I know? And they still don't even respond to that. Maybe they haven't seen it. I find that hard to believe. But long story short, if you're wondering why there hasn't been another interview with the Browns player, it's not for a lack of trying. I have tried. William Green didn't at least respond to me. He said he's not doing interviews at the moment or something like that. So hopefully we'll get another one someday. Was I ever close to quitting? Was I ever close to quitting on the Browns? I've seen so much garbage football. Did I ever reach a breaking point? And the answer is no, absolutely not. Never going to happen in a million years. The only, I'll be honest, during the 0-16 season, the apathy was at an all-time high. I remember there were moments where I was like, dude, what's the point of this anymore? I mean, this is so ridiculous. And there were like points where I like probably wanted to quit, but there's just so much. I've invested so much at this point. I mean, here I am 20 years later doing like a 2-hour slideshow presentation about the Browns. So it's just, I'm in too deep, man. Just like the Sum 41 song. So no, it's not going to happen. Plus, it would never feel the same. Rooting for another team would just never feel the same. So the answer is no, absolutely not. And this is Zach Ardo needs to see this part. Zach Ardo, if you're still here, you need to see this part. So this is me just taking the opportunity to kind of pat myself on the back here and call myself the voice of reason. I am the voice of reason when it comes to Cleveland Browns football. I am always rational. I never make emotional decisions. And that's happening right now. Everybody and their mom is just losing their mind about Deshaun Watson. And I get it. I do understand it. But, like, my thing is, like, can we at least wait till, like, week 4 to get concerned? Like, can we at least wait till week 4? That's all I'm saying. Because, like, I'm just so tired of, like, every year the Browns fans are always like, I want to see Johnny Manziel, or I want to see Cody Kessler. I want to see Tyrod Taylor. Not Tyrod Taylor. No, it was Tyrod. At one point, there was a point in Baker's rookie year, people wanted to go back to Tyrod. A very brief moment, but like, it's always just like this absurdity of like, just like the outrage mob. Like, a lot of times when people hear the word mob, they associate it with politics these days, but it's the same thing is true in sports. And I am always in opposition of the angry mobs. Every time. And here are some examples. So, Brian Hoyer over Manziel. And by the way, Zach Ardo was a huge Johnny Manziel fan. He'll try and deny it now, but he was a huge Johnny Manziel fan. And everybody was just calling for Brian Hoyer's neck, even though he had us at 7-4. I was like, this is the first time the Browns have been 7-4 in like 7 years, and you guys want a new quarterback. I just don't understand. You know, and it just seems like that's always how it is with Browns fans. Like, anyway, I'm kind of going out of order here from the bullet points, but I want to point out like instances where I have been the voice of reason. So the OBJ trade, when the Browns traded for Odell Beckham Jr., I was the only voice in Cleveland saying, I don't think this is going to work out. And I have the receipts to prove it. I have the tweets, the Snapchat messages, everything. I was the only person saying, this is not going to work out. It doesn't fit what we are at this point. We're a young developing team. We don't need a big personality like that. And it never worked from day one. So I was on the money about that. I was on the money about the Freddie Kitchens hire. Everybody was like, yes, we can't let Freddie leave the building. This is a great hire. And I was like, what are you talking about? This guy has never been a high school head coach. Never even a high school head coach. And it's like Bruce Arians is on TV begging for the job, and you're going to go with Freddie Kitchens, a guy who's been a coordinator for 8 games? And nobody wanted to hear it. I remember getting crap on Twitter for that. Nobody wanted to hear it. Sorry, let me catch up on Twitter here. I became a Bills fan when the Browns first left Cleveland. Well, I guess I kind of really became a Doug Flutie fan. Interesting. I'll go to week 4 with you. All right, that's fair, fine. Does the criticism that Deshaun is only able to thrive in an offense similar to Clemson? No, because was that what they ran in Houston? I have no idea. So I actually don't know. I don't know what Bill O'Brien was doing. I don't really study other teams, but if that's true, that's interesting at least. But the only thing I'd say to that is the rumor is that when Stefanski met with Deshaun Watson, he had like an iPad in front of him and they were going over film. So I think if Watson saw something he didn't like or thought that it wasn't going to be a match, I don't think he would have signed with the Browns. So I don't think it's true. Anyway, this slide in particular, I was a little out of order here. Didn't hit all the bullet points as concisely as I would have liked. But all I'm trying to say is I'm the voice of reason. Whenever there's chaos, I'm a constant. Just like I'm somebody you can rely on. Like come to me when the Browns are in chaos, and I'll give you a very sound take. I'm sorry. Anyway, I will hold to the opinion he simply has had so much time away from football. So here's what I think. I heard somebody say this, and I think this is a great analogy. I think the Tiger Woods analogy fits perfectly here. Because Tiger Woods was obviously never the same after that scandal, for the most part, right? And it had to be mental. I think that could possibly be what's going on with Deshaun here. There's no other explanation. Like, he's still young. You can't say he's over the hill. That doesn't make any sense. The Browns have a great team. Like, what else is it? So, all right. Anyway, moving on here. Hey, Jeffrin, are you still here by any chance? All right, and that leads me to my Baker hot take. So, as the voice of reason, I have to calm everybody down about Baker Mayfield and bring everybody back to reality. Everybody thinks Baker Mayfield is like Tom Brady now. And it's like, oh, why did we get rid of Baker Mayfield? And by the way, I was the biggest Baker Mayfield fan when he was here. Nobody made more excuses for him when he was here than me. I was the biggest fan. Ask anybody. But again, it ties into the revisionist history stuff with all the Browns fans are doing. It's the same thing with Butch Davis, same thing with Tim Couch. It's all revisionist history. Baker Mayfield went 9-8 in the worst division in football last year. That's essentially 500. He went 9-8. And everybody thinks like he's Tom Brady now. I just don't. Can someone explain the math here? Oh, okay. So they beat the Eagles in the playoffs. I'll give him that. But the Eagles were reeling, though. They were reeling. So, and then this week in Week 1 he played great, and everybody again thinks he's Tom Brady. They beat Washington. Is Washington a Super Bowl contender all of a sudden? Am I missing something with it? Like, can somebody explain why that's such a big deal? Yeah, I agree with Ardo there. Like, Baker still can't get it done consistently in 2-minute situations. He sometimes? Yeah, he did sometimes, like against the Bengals in 2020, right? And against the Bills in 2019, kind of. Although if you watch that drive, he didn't really do much there. He had one nice throw to Landry, but he just couldn't do it consistently. And he's never going to be that guy. I'm not, by the way, this isn't me trashing him. I'm just being realistic because I just can't stand Brown's Twitter and all these clowns on Facebook who like, oh, we had our guy. We never should have let him go. He had to go. It was never going to work here. This takes me to my next bullet point here. It was never going to work here. The locker room was completely fractured. He had issues with Myles Garrett, star of the defense. He had issues with like half the team. I don't know if it's his fault or what happened there, but he was a polarizing figure in that locker room. And, he even had issues with Stefanski, right? They didn't even acknowledge each other when they played each other in 2020 when the Panthers played the Browns. He had to go. Like, it just wasn't going to work out here. Even if you think he could have been like Buccaneers Baker, he couldn't have been. He had to get a fresh start somewhere. Can Baker win a Super Bowl? I don't think so. Maybe if everything really fell into place, but I don't know. It fits the LOL Browns narrative. And yeah, the last bullet point here, classic obnoxious revisionist history. It's just, I can think of so many instances where the entire town wanted to run Baker out of town at certain points. And then it's like he's gone for a year or two. He plays great against the Redskins, and now all of a sudden he's great. It's pathetic. I'm sorry. I hate like speaking negatively about him because I'm not trying to do that, but it's just so annoying. In the end, that takes us to the end, folks. That was the main act for tonight. That was the main act. That was what I had for this presentation. If I had more time to do this, this would have been much longer, and we'd be going for hours. Trust me. And it also didn't help that this anniversary coincided with a work night, right? This happened on a weekday, so I can't stay up all night. I got to get up in the morning. Otherwise, we definitely would have had a few celebratory drinks and How do we get out of here? End of slideshow, click exit. Let's go back to the beginning, put that on the screen. All right. Anyway, had this occurred on a weekend, we would have definitely had some drinks on stream to celebrate. And then, obviously, I would have played a game of 2K5 because 2K5 came out in 2004, so it would have been the perfect way to commemorate 20 years, right? Should have drafted Josh Allen instead of Baker. Yeah, but there's nuance to this whole subject. So I still think Baker probably made the most sense at the time. Because let's run through the quarterbacks that year. Lamar Jackson was too much of an experiment at that time. There was a reason he wasn't picked till the late first round. Josh Rosen, bust. Sam Darnold, bust. And that basically just leaves Josh Allen. But at the time, Josh Allen, I think he was too much of a project, right? And here's another thing. I also don't trust the Browns I don't trust them to develop, or I wouldn't have trusted them to develop Josh Allen. I just don't. It wouldn't have worked because he didn't look good his first year in Buffalo, right? And we know how that is in Cleveland. We're a woe is me city. We always hit the panic button. And it just would have been a kind of a toxic environment for Josh Allen. Plus all the coaching changes, you know. I don't think it would have worked out. I mean, maybe he's so talented he could have overcame it. I don't know. But yeah, somebody said Hugh Jackson would have ruined Allen. I mean, I don't know. I just think it wouldn't have worked, unfortunately. I think Baker, I got to give him this. He had the mental fortitude to withstand Cleveland, right? He's a tough guy emotionally. And like I truly think he still is probably the best pick for the Browns from that entire draft. It just unfortunately wasn't a draft that had like a Joe Burrow or a C.J. Stroud or something like that. Cool stream. I thought that said cool straw man. I was like, wait, what did I say? I was like, wait, what did I say to him? All right, I'll catch you later. Copacetic 216. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Saying wish I was able to catch us earlier. Yeah, I don't know if I enabled the DVR feature, so you should be able to watch it from the beginning. By the way, I will keep this stream up. This is going to be a video that will stay on my channel, so you can just watch it whenever. I understand your point, but I thought the trade was bad. What happened over 2 years ago? You're talking about Deshaun Watson? Yeah, that's fair. Hugh Jackson. Yeah, I already read that. Did you trust the Browns to develop Baker? Not particularly, but Baker's personality, I mean, I just touched on this. His personality, I always kind of, is why I thought he could have worked here. Like, you need it, because it's daunting when you're a rookie quarterback and you come into this situation where every quarterback has failed the last 30 years. And you need somebody who has a personality like Baker, who's super cocky and arrogant, to kind of be like, you know what, I don't care. And so that's what I think he had going for him. But did I trust him to develop him? I don't know. I don't remember what I was thinking. They certainly didn't do the best job. I mean, how many coaches did he have his first couple of years? But anyway, I think there's some Browns trivia we can get into here. It's not going to work. All right. Well, anyway, that's all I got for you tonight, because I forgot that's like 2022 or something. So that's all I got on the format for tonight, guys. Let me know what you think. Leave feedback. And maybe we could do this again in the future. The problem is it takes so much time to like put together that I don't know how often I can do this. You know, because I'm trying to make videos. It's hard enough to make videos. It's hard enough to find free time to make videos, but I'll try and do it more in the future, maybe. I don't know. Seemed like we had a decent viewership for tonight, so that was kind of cool. Usually the 2K5 live streams do not have that many viewers, so. How many wins, how many games for Deshaun this year? That's going to depend. I don't know. Deshaun, I could see. I think the next couple of weeks are going to tell us about what happens with Deshaun. I mean, if he continues to look like a dumpster fire, then, you know, we're going to be in trouble. But if he gets it together, then I think we can turn it around. I mean, the roster is certainly talented enough. But anyway, I'm going to get going, guys. Thanks for sticking around. It was a good time. Hope you enjoyed learning about my career as a Browns fan, if that makes sense. It's been 20 years. It's been 20 years. And what a ride it has been, like I said at the top. But the Browns have helped me. The Browns have contributed to like the person I am today. Really. I mean, they molded me. They really did mold me. I mean, I'm not going to turn this into a therapy session, but like this is like a real relationship I have with the Browns. It's like having a relationship with a real person, and you know, the ups and downs, the heartbreak you experience. It's like I definitely have trust issues. I expect the worst out of people. I'm not even joking. The Browns have contributed to that. And like, you know, I don't know. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to turn this into a therapy session. But I'm going to end the stream here. Thanks for staying on and sticking with me the last couple hours. I will catch you guys in the next one. I don't know when I'm going to be streaming next, but it's usually on a Saturday night these days. So anyway, I'll catch you on the next one. How do I end the damn stream?